Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 281 with Nick Ortner. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when he explains what emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, actually is. We also talk about how you can learn it. He takes us through that in this episode and how it can help you with so many things from anxiety, stress, fear, sleep, weight loss, relationships, birthing, panic attacks, depression, and so much more. But there is loads more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head on over to melissaambrosini.com/281 right now. Nick, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here and to dive deep into your incredible work. Can you tell us about your story? Like, how did you get to where you are today doing the work that you now do? Like, how did this all unfold for you?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I discovered tapping, or EFT, this technique that we're going to talk about today, right around 2002, 2003. I just discovered this technique and it just worked so well for me, and started using it with the people I loved and saw them get great results with it and just became so passionate about it. And right around 2007, I had this inspiration. Right around 2007 was when The Secret had come out or had blown up and become a big deal. And I knew that several people who were in The Secret, like Jack Canfield and Joe Vitale, were actually really into tapping as well. It was a technique that they used. So in my mind, it was like, all right, well, some of the stars of The Secret, also Bob Doyle, who's in The Secret, was really into tapping. If the stars of The Secret, this huge movie that is out there that is changing lives, are using this technique, maybe I can make a movie about the technique itself. We made things happen, not without many, many challenges along the way. We used a lot of tapping to stay focused, to persevere, to overcome the obstacles. And we released this film, this 90-minute film about tapping that has a bunch of experts like Jack Canfield and Joe Vitale and Cheryl Richardson and a lot of people that you'll know and recognize, but also follows 10 real people and their experience with tapping. What I wanted to do in the movie is go, all right, well, I love The Secret and it's an inspirational movie. It's all fine and good, but it's other people telling their stories. I wanted to show real people because I knew the tapping works for the normal, everyday human being that's struggling with different challenges.
That is awesome. Firstly, let's break it down. What is EFT, emotional freedom technique, or also known as tapping? So what is it?
Yeah, so EFT, or tapping, is sort of the regular term that we use for it. And we call it tapping because we are literally physically tapping on endpoints of meridians of our body. And what the latest research has shown, that when we tap on these endpoints of meridians while focusing on the stress, the anxiety, the pain in our bodies, whatever's going on that is holding us back, we send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala is that fight or flight response. It's that part of us that when we're anxious, it's firing. It's telling us that we are unsafe. It is active when we're stressed out. And the tapping not only calms that response, but done properly at the right time for what you need and having the right tool sets reprograms the brain. One of the reasons why tapping works so well on virtually everything, that when we look around at our lives, just about anything that we want to change, just about any spot that we're struggling, just about any spot that we're overwhelmed or we don't have something that we want, that stress response is underneath it all. So wherever we look in our lives, tapping can help unlock it. And it's such a simple process. You can learn it so quickly in just a matter of minutes, but its elegance, its beauty just is applied to so many different aspects of our lives and for so many people.
And how can we learn it? Is the best place to go to your website or your app?
I think the app right now is the best place. The reason we created the app is the technique is so easy to use. The basics apply everywhere. So it's really, oh, you're anxious? Okay, start with, even though I'm anxious, I love and accept myself. I use my own app and I will listen to my own voice because it's so helpful. And the reason is that when we're in these stuck states, when we are anxious, when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed out, we don't have the mental capacity. We don't have the resources to think clearly. That's why it's so helpful to talk to a friend. That's what the tapping does. And that's what the app does even further, to do the tapping on your specific challenge, the place you're stuck in order to break free.
I love it. So, what are some of the things that tapping can help with?
Let me give your listeners some of the places where it really stands out. Pain relief. When people are dealing with chronic pain, what is it that's happening that is making it so the pain is not healing, not going away? Pain and our bodies, the places where we're not healing, please try tapping because it is just so powerful. Sometimes people get results in 5 minutes or a minute. We have what are called our 1 minute miracles, but more often than not, it'll take a little work and some persistence and beginning to unlearn your pain and change some of these habits and some of those places that we're stuck, that we're holding on to these patterns. So I mentioned weight loss, and my sister wrote a book which was gratefully also a New York Times bestseller called The Tapping Solution for Weight Loss and Body Confidence. The book came out, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago now, but I feel like the message today is more topical than ever, saying, hey, we need to look about how we feel about our bodies, how we respond to the media and the perceptions that are put out there, and just frankly, how much we beat ourselves up and we try to stress ourselves to a solution. So her approach is, as opposed to trying to beat yourself up to be thin, criticize yourself healthy, be negative, I got to do better, I'm not good enough. It's starting from that place of self-love and looking around and saying, okay, where are the places in my life where I'm not being kind to myself? What's most important to us is the people who feel that from doing this work, they've had a transformation with their bodies. So anxiety is obviously huge. It's one of the free sessions in our app. I think at last count, the anxiety session has had about 300,000 individual plays. So it's been completed 300,000 times. And the average reduction in anxiety in a 10-minute session is 42%. So 42% in 10 minutes or 300,000 sessions. I just don't know what is better than that. That is pretty hard to beat, to get that kind of a reduction. So yeah, so anxiety is a big one. And then, I mentioned earlier the fears and phobias. Those are the little places in our lives where we can make these changes and really dramatically affect them. We stress ourselves out, we beat ourselves up in order to try to create change in our lives. And the results are, if it's working for you, then great. I imagine it's likely not. And then the tapping, is a more gentle approach, another way to look at these places that we're stuck in order to create changes.
Would you say it's on the similar path to hypnosis?
Yeah, I would almost call them cousins. Hypnosis is mostly done to you and it's pretty passive. You're not necessarily doing a lot of thinking about things and having your own personal breakthroughs. The tapping, even with the guided tapping meditations on the app, even though I'm guiding you through it or my sister's guiding you through it and telling you the things to say. So I see time and again, people say, I used this before a meeting in the bathroom when I needed it. And normally I would choke and I would be stressed and I'd be overwhelmed. But I did it for 2 minutes in the bathroom stall. Nobody saw me and I felt great. And that's not something you can do with hypnosis because we don't want to fall asleep or get totally zoned out. So I think in a lot of ways, it's a more active process when you need it.
So, how can we make it a habit and remember to do it in these times of stress or anxiety? For me, is the biggest thing.
I don't mean to be repetitive here and just like pushing this app so much. It is free to download. But the reason why we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this app, it was released a year ago. We've been working on it for several years before then, is because I knew of that problem exactly. And there was two things that I saw from people. One is not remembering to tap. So couple little things we have in the app. We have a daily tapping reminder. We send out push notifications to, if you allow them and you want them to nudge you, to remind you in gentle ways. And then the other thing that was really important to me for the app is to get really specific on the issue for people. So right now there's maybe 200 meditations in the app. We're adding more every week. I did 9 new ones last week and hopefully we'll have 1,000 eventually, because what I wanted is to have the specific thing that once you know it's there, that's a go-to. And you also know that you can do things in different lengths of time. So For example, I have turn your day around, change a bad day. So it's like, hey, we've all been there where we're stuck, and someone knowing, okay, that meditation exists makes it a lot easier than on your own when you're in the midst of a bad day, when you're overwhelmed, to have to come up with the stuff for yourself.
Could you take us through one now? I'd love if we could do that. I'm not sure. Can we, like, without being able to see?
Yeah. All right. So let's start by just focusing on what's in front of us. So, what thing right now in this moment are you stressed about most? And the more specific you can be, the better. So, we don't want to say about the world, though we can tap on stress about the world, but let's try to get real specific on one thing that's bothering you right now. So, pick that one thing and give it a number on a scale of 0 to 10 in intensity. 10 would be the most angry, the most stressed, the most anxious, just whatever number comes to mind. And then also see if you can localize where that emotion is in your body. Just notice where it is. Now we have our emotion. We're thinking about the thing that is bothering us. And let's do some tapping. So, tapping on the side of the hand. It's the karate chop point. It's on the outside of the hand. Just take one hand to tap on the other below the pinky. So, in that meaty part on the outside of the hand. And you are just tapping gently. Not too fast, not too slow, light pressure. And then repeat after me, either in your mind or out loud. Even though I'm holding on to all this stress, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And we're going to stay on the side of the hand, just tapping continuously. Even though I have all this stress in my body, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm holding on to all this stress, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And now we'll tap through the points. The eyebrow point is on the inside of the eyebrow. You're going to take 2 fingers of one hand, the other hand, or both hands. The meridians run down both sides of the body. So you're just tapping gently on the inside of the eyebrow. And I want you to just think about this stressful situation. Tapping gently, breathing gently, thinking about this stress, this anger, this anxiety, the thing that's keeping you stuck. Now we move under the nose, tapping gently. Under the mouth, it's above the chin, below the lip, and that little crease there, tapping with 2 fingers, tuning into this emotion and all the stress you're holding on to in your body. We have 3 points left for the collarbone point. Feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone, and you just go right below it. You can tap with all 10 fingers of both hands, tapping gently, breathing gently, tuning into that stress, that anxiety, that overwhelm. You can think the angry thoughts now. You can think the anxious thoughts now. And with every tap, you begin to let them go. Under the arm, right underneath the armpit, about 3 inches below it, either side of the body, right on the bra line for women. Tapping and tuning into the stress, this anxiety, this anger. The last point at the top of the head, right on the crown. See that movie. What's in your way? What are you upset about? Now we'll do a couple more rounds, moving back to the eyebrow. Repeat after me in your mind or out loud. It's safe to feel these feelings. Side of the eye. It's safe to acknowledge how I feel. Under the eye. And it's safe to begin to let them go. Under the nose. All these stuck feelings in my body. Under the mouth. All this stress in my body. Collarbone. Feeling these feelings. Under the arm. Letting them go now. Top of the head. Feeling all these feelings. We'll do one more round back to the eyebrow and letting them go now. Side of the eye. Feeling strong and confident. Under the eye. It's safe to release these feelings. Under the nose. Feeling grounded in my body now. Under the mouth. Letting go. Collarbone. All is well. Under the arm. Letting go. Top of the head. Right now. And you can gently stop tapping and take a breath in and let it go. And now we check back in. So we look at our number. So that anxiety, that anger, you might say, well, it was an 8 and now it's a 7 or a 6 or a 5 or a 4.
What do you attribute your success to?
The underlying success is that tapping works. Anything I've done first is tapping, right? Beyond that, I think that certainly my passion for this and my passion, underneath all of this to help people create change, to recognize the suffering that people are going through and the places in their lives where they are stuck and they are overwhelmed or they are traumatized and they don't have the ability to break through or the resources to break through. I think my passion for this process has certainly helped me get up every morning and push and push and push. And then if we're talking from, the real sort of the business side of things and the places where I've been effective, I think that I've had a clear understanding of the public and how most people look at things. And one of the things that I've tried to do with tapping is to take it from this energy technique and a lot of talk about the meridians to then say, okay, what's the real brain science behind it? And how can we put this in a package that anybody in the world without care for denomination or class, like I said, can use it and use it to improve their lives.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Who did create this and when was it created?
Yeah, so the original version was created by Dr. Roger Callahan, who passed away a few years ago in 1980. And he was a traditional psychologist working in particular with a client by the name of Mary, who had a terrible water phobia. And by terrible water phobia, I'm talking drinking water upset her, showering was a disaster, forget about going in a pool. She was just terrified of water. He had done the traditional psychotherapy work with her, and they'd been working together for about a year and a half. He was frustrated. She was frustrated because nothing was getting better. She would get terrible migraines from the sessions just talking about the water. And it just so happened that he had been reading about the Chinese meridian system and had read that the stomach meridian ends underneath the eye. And on a whim, on inspiration, who knows how he was guided to do so, he said, try tapping underneath the eye for a minute. She did so, and her phobia cleared completely. So this is like an unbelievable breakthrough.
Now, I'd love to hear one thing that you're working on or would like to improve within yourself at the moment.
I have been disappointed in the cell phone and I'm not big on social media. It's usually like the news, and I'm looking to change those habits to get in front of a book more often. And it especially sort of gets to me when I'm reading a book and I'm like, my attention span is not what it was a decade ago. Like I could just see clearly that my brain's been conditioned to a different experience, and I would like to change that.
Now, let's pretend that you have a magic wand and you could put one book in the school curriculum of every single high school around the world.
Man, such a good question. Okay, here's where I'm gonna go. So there's a book that I read a few months ago called The Deepest Well. It is by Nadine Burke Harris. And the subtitle is Healing the Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity.
What is one thing, like one of the most important things that we can do today for our health?
Well, however you do it, whether you do tapping or meditation, just reduce your stress. It is so underrated. It is such a big deal. I understand why it's underrated. I fall in the same traps of thinking that that supplement or that pill or that thing, because it comes in a bottle and I bought it and someone, told me it did this, is going to help you. But if you're looking to transform your health, start with reducing stress, however you do it.
What's one of the most important things we can do for more wealth, so more abundance in all areas of our life?
Identify the patterns, the places where you're stuck. Usually there's going to be a pattern. So you're going to say, well, I make a lot of money and then I lose a lot of money. Or I make a lot, but I spend a lot. Like we go through these patterns. My pattern was up and down. I was either boom or bust. It was like, wow, I did really well one year. And the next year was a disaster. And I had to look at that and say, okay, why am I creating this pattern? What are the things that when I'm in that boom period is creating a mentality that goes, this isn't safe. This is dangerous. I'm overwhelmed. I can't handle this. Time to go bust. So I think identifying those patterns, if you've been doing it long enough, they're there and you can use these techniques to change them.
And what's one of the most important things that we can do today for our love? So, more love in our life.
Well, I mean, I'm sounding like a broken record, but love, again, it goes back to these patterns. The reason we don't have love in our lives is because we've closed down our hearts because we've been hurt. I mean, that is the bottom line. Something's happened. Sometimes it can be as a heartbreak from when you were 15 years old and you said, I cannot believe he or she dumped me. Relationships are dangerous. I'm never doing this again. or we were mistreated and we closed down our heart. So finding a way to open up your heart, finding a way to forgive, it's that inner work first. And from there, the love opens up.